Many would describe the current council dynamic as divided, and at times toxic. What does governing with integrity mean to you, and what would you do to improve the working environment on City Council?
It's interesting you would mention that or ask that question in our ward. The ward candidates currently are already divided. We've got major political parties having fielded candidates. We've got people having allegiances with other candidates. I find that very, very disturbing. We need a collaborative, working council. If we're going to look at candidates that are big into party politics, I find that's divisive. My entire work life and my community life was built on collaboration and bringing communities together to get programs and projects to fruition on time, on budget. I've worked with many different councillors, many different political leaders in the city of all different parties. And I think that being nonpartisan and a collaborative business leader is also good for the community. Having this division is toxic. We've got people on council that are immediately not sitting down with the provincial government and the federal government. We have to have a collaborative relationship with the provincial government. We have to have a collaborative relationship with the federal government. If we don't collaborate with those governments, we will get nothing accomplished. We work as a united force. In business, there was oftentimes I was in a department where a manager was not happy to see me. But by the end of the project, he was thrilled I was there. My job was to get him to trust that the project would be workable for him and in his best interest or her best interest. We need a collaborative, nonpartisan council.
I've very much been a collaborator my entire life. I collaborate with people you don't get along with. Again, that comes down to that communication. I've talked about communication so much today, and being able to understand that we all want what's best for our neighborhood, for our neighbors, for ourselves, and for our city. Some of us have different ideas on how to get there, but I think we need to remember that just because somebody has a different ideal or a different idea, that they're not the enemy. And I know that social media can perpetuate the divisiveness as well. And so we need to not communicate through social media. You need to be able to listen to people and take into account kind of where they're at. That's the big thing. It's communicating. Right down to the basic of what we all live as human beings with every relationship we have, be it working, personal, whatever the case may be. Communication is key.
You know, it's actually a lot easier, I think, to say no than it is to say yes. We are in a culture where everyone's feeling anxious and there's a lot of stress, and people tend to become much more regressive and polarized in that space. So we need leadership on council that's going to bring the temperature down, which means having some skills around your emotional management personally. And it means being able to move into those difficult conversations early. Recognize where there's conflict, and instead of avoiding it, instead of just deciding that you're right and digging in your heels, that you have something to learn from that conflict. You need to have some humility in that space and recognize that you don't have all the answers or you don't know all of the information. And then, build those relationships. And so a lot of the work I've done in community over the years has been about helping communities navigate high conflict situations, especially around land use. And people are, the anxiety, fear, opposition comes from an understandable place. It comes from a feeling of threat. So we need to have empathy for that feeling. We need to have boundaries around how people behave. But then we also need to be able to help bring them to a place where people can think about what they love and care about and what they want to do that's positive rather than what they're just pushing up against all the time. But we don't do that by telling them they're dumb or stupid for being upset. We do that by having some empathy for the fact that they're angry or upset, and then being able to move to a place of like, okay, so what are you trying to protect? Let's figure out how we can do that while stuff changes. And fundamentally, that applies whether it's a constituent or a council colleague or someone in administration or someone in industry or someone in labor. It really doesn't matter who you are and across what sort of stakeholder interest or group you were part of. There's a temperament piece that's really, really important, I think, moving forward. And when I talk about needing to change politics, I think like we are at an inflection point here, and it's just getting worse, and it's really hard actually to hold that line and do that type of work in this context, but it's all the more important.
That's a great question. I've had the privilege of being elected to at least 3 different Edmonton Public School Board cohorts of trustees. And each time I've been elected as either the audit chair, the vice chair, the board chair, or some other leadership position by my peers. Have I always won votes? No. Have I always lost votes? No. But I've managed to help build a culture where we can disagree without being disagreeable. It's about depersonalizing issues and debating those issues, not debating the people who move them. It's about having good process and good governance. And governance is it's not sexy. It doesn't get the same attention from a lot of our neighbors as it should. But good governance and good rules leads to good outcomes. And I've experienced not just doing good governance at the public school board, but as a trustee on the Edmonton Public Library Board, at the University of Alberta, as president of the Students' Union. I have almost 20 years of cumulative governance experience in helping build constructive, positive cultures that welcome and embrace conflict, but do so in a way that is productive and actually leads to a better outcome. I think it's okay to be, and we should welcome criticism from one another. So I think that helps us all be better. But I think looking at things that better process leads to better outcomes. So whether it's changing the code of conduct, whether it's changing some of the other pieces around council's working relationship, those are all options. But I think it's really important to get the governance right. Everything else follows.
Yeah, well, governing with integrity, I think, really comes down to integrity in general. It's just ensuring that every decision that you make is supported by the need to do what's best for the community. That's why I'm strongly opposed to having party politics within municipal governments, because I think that just creates this divide that's artificial when it comes down to the decisions that are made by council. This political spectrum of right versus left, it may work when you actually have party politics, but when you're at the council level, everyone needs to work together. And I think that we need to move beyond the division and the populist tactics that we're seeing, and find ways to actually come together and work together and ensure that everything that we're doing, we're not doing because of a personal belief or some tie that we have to a bigger political party, but it's actually what's best for the community. And it is kind of frustrating to see party politics dipping into municipal politics, and I think that people are upset with that. But it needs to be fought back against, and regardless of the side that's coming in here, because I think about, municipal government has to work tight with the provincial and federal governments, and realistically, we live in Alberta. I've had one non-conservative government in the entire time that I've lived. So if we're tying ourselves to a party that is not likely to be in power at the provincial level, then we might have a difficult time getting that relationship strong and the resources we need to do what we need to do as a city.
Yeah,
governing with integrity, to me, it means that we need to have a city council that actually listens to each other. You know what I mean? For me, I've been building relationships with all city council candidates. I've been trying my best. I have met with a bunch of them so far, and I believe firmly that if I do end up getting elected to city council, I hope to meet with all city councilors, and I hope to have a sit down, and I hope to share my priorities for that council and what I want to get done, and I hope to listen to their priorities too, and seeing where we can work on different things. For me, I really want to hyperly work with the city council for Ward Métis and Ward Dene, since they're neighboring wards, and since Ward Métis is facing a lot of the same problems that Ward Papastew is as well. I think the best thing we can do is actually strengthen the workplace code of conduct, because that's something that's been severely lacking, and certain councils have been taking advantage of this. You know what I mean? Continual harassment of the councillors is completely unacceptable, and it's something that we need to make sure we're giving more power to the integrity commissioner, because at the end of the day, we can't have bullying on city council, because once again, it's not high school, it's a grown-up place for work, and we have a lot of important things to deal with the city council, especially moving forward this next term. And unfortunately, I don't think I wouldn't appreciate my time being wasted, and I'm sure other city councilors would not appreciate their time being wasted with nuisances from other city councilors on biases and bullying.